that is on China. So what we'll be doing in this particular, these two sessions which we are going to have today, we'll be discussing the world, the country as the country China, their world view, their relationship with the world, but from the point of view of a expert in geopolitical studies, you know, like not as an Indian. I mean, if you think that you are an Indian, you have some biases, so just shed off those biases, because when we talk of geopolitics, we try to see things from an expert point of view, right? So try to understand that what is the view of China, what is the view of the people about China, the experts, and how China is interconnected with the world. That is very important. Then you will understand how geopolitics works. So that is the approach which we are going to use for today's lecture. Okay. So as we all know that China had been a fancy for so many years now, 30-40 years. Of late it has become a very big fancy of the world. Earlier it was economically, but now it is becoming fancy from political angle also. Politically also it is gaining grounds. So China, what is happening with China? China is demonstrating itself not only as the economic power, but also as a political power, slowly and steadily. So it's a very common saying that wealth brings reputation. In Indian society also, you know that somebody who is rich has got, you know, more reputation in the society. It is true globally also. So when China is becoming rich, so political power is also coming. Of course, I discussed in some of the earlier classes that politically, geopolitically, there are two kinds of power. One is the hard power and second is the soft power. This result I discussed with you. Definitely China with its wealth and money is definitely enjoys a lot of hard power, both militarily also. But now slowly and steadily China is also gaining some certain amount of reasonably better soft power. Of course India has been enjoying this power for a long time, right? So only time will tell, you know, how much that soft power we can retain and how much we can generate further hard power. That is the expectation from Modi government. If you look at from that point of view, that what we are looking for, soft power we already enjoy, but we are looking for more and more hard power, something like what China already has. Okay. So we have to see it in that perspective. Yeah.
Hard power means?
I discussed this within the earlier classes. Hard power means, see, geopolitically any country enjoys two kinds of power. One is the hard power, which means hard power means the power of money, the power of economic strength, the power of foreign exchange reserves. For example, China has world's second largest foreign exchange reserves. So the country which has got so much of reserves, foreign exchange, there are a lot of flexibilities in the world trade which that country can enjoy, and no wonder China has got 11% share in the world trade, 11%, as against India's share in the world trade, which is 2%. Look at the gap, 11% and 2%, mainly because of the hard power. And what is the hard power? The economic power, the foreign exchange reserves, probably military power also. Okay. Of course, in the neighborhood of India, the country which has got the maximum military power is, of course, China, right? In terms of arms and ammunition, in terms of equipments, right? And probably in the Asian region, even Japan does not have that kind of military power. Japan is a small country. Size is also not there. So China has got a size also. So all these things bring hard power. Soft power specifically means the acceptability of the country geopolitically, politically as well as geopolitically. Like India being a democratic country, India being a country where labor laws are not made to favor industry, where individual freedom is there, where press freedom is there. So acceptability of India is definitely better than China in the world. In any forum, what India says, people will listen. And probably China, whatever this China says, people will be skeptical. You know, they will have a suspicion on the intention of the country. Not because they are evil, no. Only because their political and economic systems are different. Right. So they are not very common. Because communist thinking is not very common. Right? We will talk about it more about it. There is something deeper meaning also in this which we will be talking today. Okay, so you understood the hard power and soft power. So China was always the fancy of the developed world, and US, due to its size, the market size, economic size, so many people. Like it is true for India also. In today's time, India is also becoming a fancy, like China. Okay. So, but being the poor country in the past, 30-40 years back, China definitely was as poor as probably India. And so was, so it did not attract the attention of US earlier, say 30-40 years back. You know, the attention of US was not there because it was a poor country. But when a country is poor, the possibility of consumption is low, and especially the kind of goods with the Western world, the developed countries had been using, you know, washing machines, dishwashers, vacuum cleaners. You know, a poor country will not normally buy those kind of goods, or deodorizers, high-tech hospital beds, the high-tech medical equipments. Normally, poor country will not be able to consume that. But today, after certain period, China is no more that poor country. So it has become a even bigger market, not only for US but many Western countries and many other countries which are selling high-tech items. You know, these countries, US, Western countries, probably they are not the very big manufacturing base, but definitely they export a lot of material which are high-tech in nature. For example, I'll give you an example. Even today, even in India, the best of the private hospitals, they will go for medical equipments made in USA. Not even medical equipments, probably not even made in Japan, made in USA. Because it's a question of life and death. So the quality is prime, you know. So high-tech items, very high-tech items. Japanese companies also provide a lot of high-tech items. So what they are doing, their manufacturing base is now smaller, but their value-added products are very much there. So they are creating a lot of value in their exports. So China, of course, will be like, take the example of Mercedes-Benz or Audi cars. You know, China will not manufacture it. It comes from European countries, but there are a lot of people who are buying these cars in China. Okay. So, for example, 1 billion people to be treated in hospitals. So 2 billion armpits to deodorize. Everybody has got 2 armpits, right? So look at the market. Look at the size of the market. Now the same thing you can today tell about India also. In India also, these disposable incomes are increasing. People want deodorizer. People want best of the medical treatment, medical care. You know, so same thing. When the lifestyle changes, the propensity to consume goods also changes. So same thing had happened and is happening in China. iPhones, I think probably the biggest market for iPhone today is not US, it is China. And India is catching up. iPhone, right? Apple is taking a lot of interest in India. You must be seeing in the newspaper recently. No one means the companies which belong to US, they were not taking big interest. Like what these companies from US? Medical equipment companies, tank manufacturers, passenger place manufacturers, right? Very high-tech machineries manufacturers, oil rigs, nuclear weapons, very high-tech electrical and electronics equipments, very high-tech, or space technology. These are the companies from US. They did not take interest in supplying these material to China because they knew they cannot afford it. But today, you can't say that. You can't say that Chinese people cannot afford it. If something can be made by China, it's okay. But everything cannot be made by China. And in fact, China's, the skills of manufacturing is in the intermediate products, intermediate technology or the lower technology. Not in the high technology. Of course not. Have you ever seen any cardiological machine coming from China? Have you never heard? It never happens. And one more thing, one more problem. China has another problem. In very high-tech items, there is a high amount of software, IT software involved, right? And they are very poor at that. For example, very precision robotic automotive machines. There is if you look at the value of these machines, there is a 40% 40 or 50% mechanical items value addition, and rest of the value addition is through the computer software because they are computer aided machines. So China does not have that level of manufacturing. Like for example, a very good example is iPhone itself, right? iPhone is a combination of the electronics and the software, right? So the common software, Android, whatever it is, they are very common kind of thing that maybe probably it is possible for China to manage. But what about the latest things? They come from US or European countries. So nobody took interest earlier, but today definitely the companies will take interest. Yeah, that is what I'm saying. 5 years back, you would not have said that when Modi government had not come. But suddenly, now India is looking at, being another China in the making. It is happening, right? At least there is a potential. So whatever we are talking about China is coming true for India also. True, you are right. And when it comes to very high-tech items also, India definitely is a market. India is ready to buy even bullet trains. In fact, yesterday only there was a news that 12 international companies have shown interest in starting the feasibility study for diamond quadrilateral. Do you know what is diamond quadrilateral? Modi government's diamond quadrilateral. Diamond quadrilateral means no, that is golden. That is golden quadrilateral. Now Modi has come up with a new mission that is diamond quadrilateral. Diamond quadrilateral means joining 4 metro cities by bullet train. Right? And 12 companies have shown interest. So if 12 companies have shown interest, that's a very good thing, because see, when you have a requirement and 12 companies are there, so competition will be there, so you'll get a very good deal, right? So probably it's my view, if everything goes well, the feasibility study will start rolling by next year for the bullet trains. So that is one example. But then defense production and many other things. India is becoming a good market. Okay. So this point is clear. So does the future belong to China? So China threat is for real now. It seems for all the big economies, including US. Threat means economic threat. A competitor. Threat means not threat in the sense security threat, but as a competitor. To countries like Japan, to countries like US, to countries like Germany. These are the countries which are big player when it comes to high technology and manufacturing. Okay, and of course, India is already a very big player in services. and IT services and other services. So China, in fact, India is a bigger player than China when it comes to IT and some of these areas. Now, another status which has been enjoyed by China in recent time, it has been called as the workshop of the world. What is the meaning of workshop of the world? Somebody will tell me. What is the meaning?
Related to all manufacturing, unexpensive things will be made in the China.
But what is so special about a workshop? There is some difference in a manufacturing country or a workshop. What is the difference?
Like during taking the training for the particular thing, and they start their own manufacturing.
No, let me make it more clear for you. Yeah, that is okay, manufacturing. But what is so special about a workshop? When we say workshop, what that? That is called research centers. That is called R&D labs, where you do experiments, you train, training centers. Workshop means everything else has been already done. R&D has been done, trials have been done, prototype has been made, pilot has been made. It is now ready for production. That is called workshop. What is the meaning of this? That China will produce something which has been already tested, designed, researched outside China. So what is happening? The world is using China as a place where everything which has been already tried is going to be manufactured. Mass production has to be made just to reduce the price. That is the purpose. And that status has come to China. Now let me tell you, probably some of you might have read about it. This status of a workshop of the world, which is now enjoyed by China, before China, you will be surprised to know that the country which enjoyed this status, you cannot even imagine. Can you tell me which was the country which enjoyed this status of a workshop of the world? India, of course not. India manufacturing has not been. I mean, of course, I am not talking about the ancient times. I am talking about the recent times. Recent time is maybe 50 years, 80 years back. Before China became the workshop of the world, which was the workshop of the world? Russia. Russia could not be the workshop of the world for one reason. Because Russia was totally communist country, first of all, like China, of course. But it was not integrated to the world. So it was not possible for world businesses to produce something and get it manufactured in Russia. And especially during the Cold War, it was absolutely not possible. Cost how much? 45 years. So of course, Russia could not have been the workshop of the world, obviously. Which was the country?
England.
Industrial revolution happened there.
Yes.
And Manchester. Like when we started we started policies to make Kanpur as a manufacturing city. So when the first factory was inaugurated, so government said that our vision is to make Kanpur as the Manchester of India.
But sir, Ahmedabad is the Manchester.
No, but the original idea was Kanpur, right? Of course, we could not make it Manchester for various reasons, but that was the idea, and that is the reason. The Kanpur is the biggest railway hub. Do you know that? Not even Lucknow. No, not Lucknow. Kanpur is the lines have been designed in such a way that the main hub remains Kanpur, because it was supposed to be producing and distributing different types of machineries and things like that to all over India. It was supposed to be the Manchester. We could not do it, but that was the idea. So Manchester, so UK. Manchester is is a very famous city in UK, which was famous for manufacturing, large scale manufacturing, right? So before China got this status as the workshop of the world, it was Manchester, UK, 30-40 years back, before World War II, especially, right? Between World War I and World War II, it was UK, right? And even before World War I, right? So that status was with UK, but that today, that status is in our neighborhood. That Manchester is no more a city, it is now a country. And let me tell you one more thing. One more thing I want to tell you. That, of course, China also has a lot of cities, different cities, which are very much into manufacturing. But there is one state, like we have Maharashtra, Gujarat, like that. There is one state in China. Have you heard the name of the state which is the most industrialized state of China? Like when we say in India, our commerce capital is Mumbai, or we say that Gujarat is a manufacturing state, But in China, the biggest, the state which has the maximum number of manufacturing centers, Shanghai is part of that. Shanghai is a city. I'm talking about the state. What is the name of that state? Like our Uttar Pradesh or Punjab, or like that. It is called Jiangsu. It is called Jiangsu. Shanghai is part of Jiangsu. Like Mumbai is part of Maharashtra, Shanghai is part of Jiangsu. So maximum free trade zones, special economic zones, the zones which acts as the workshop of the world are located in Jiangsu region. Okay. Other states, they are good in agriculture or things like that. But this is the state which is very much into the manufacturing. Big manufacturing. Okay. Jiangsu. So later on, all big companies enter into China because China slowly progressed with its policies, right? All Walmart, Intel, all companies, they entered into China in a very big way. In fact, there is no big US company which is not having their big offices in China. I mean, of course, all the big companies, all manufacturing, all pharmaceutical, automotive, all companies, they have their offices and probably plants also in China, right? Today, even in India, you go to even the best of the showrooms, you will find things manufactured in China, even high quality, right? So it became world's fastest growing economy and second largest holder of foreign exchange reserves, right? That we know. Most of the things we know. We'll slowly go into things probably which you don't know. We'll just slowly move into the different facts and go a little deeper. Okay. China's growth has helped the world. Do you know that? China's growth, whatever you say, China is a threat or a competitor for Germany or for US or probably other countries. But let me tell you, it has been shown, the recent history of economics of the world has shown that growth in China has helped the world. The first help came when there was a stock burst in 2001 in US. The whole world was affected by that. They survived that burst because of the growing Chinese economy. So world economy did not shatter. And it was again repeated in 2008 when recession happened. We came out of this recession. Actually, world did not suffer too much. India, of course, did not suffer that much. The only region probably which has not recovered from that recession is Europe. Europe is the only region in the world which has still not come out of that recession, the impact of that recession, right? But rest of the world has come out. Even US has come out, mainly because of the positive impact of the growth of China. But now there is a debate in the world. The same thing is going to happen due to the growth of India. Because what is happening? Even China's growth is slowing down. It has already reached the
level
peak. Now it is coming down. But India's growth is now picking up. So now the world economy is looking India as a savior of the world economy. What China's growth did to the world, it helped 2001 recession, it helped 2008 recession. It is said that in future, anything of that sort again happens, probably it will be the growth of India which is going to be helped. Right? Okay? So that is the reason Modi is being welcomed so much around the world. That is the main reason. That's why the world says that somebody like Modi should remain in India. I mean, there should not be anything less than Modi. Because that the world need. It's not only the India which need Modi, the world need Modi. Right? That is the situation. Okay? The same thing was repeated as I told you in 2008. There is another interesting part of it. The kind of rise of China is the third biggest world power shift. Power, when I say hard power, I'm not talking about soft power. In last 400 years. In last 400 years, if you look at the history of the world, the economic history of the world, there has been shift of power. The first shift of power happened in Germany, early 20th century. Early 19th century. Right? The second biggest shift of power was Japan in the 20th century. Right? And similar or even higher, bigger shift of power is now happening with China. So it is the third biggest shift of power, hard power. Right? Hard power in the world. It is also called rise of East. And suppose it happens with India now in a very big way, then it will be the fourth very big shift of power. Very, very big. It can be. It is possible. So fourth biggest shift in last 400 years. So if it happens with India also, then the gap of this shift will be very less. Right? So probably this shift which happened in China is last 20-30 years. In such a short time, if that shift happens to India, so that gap is very low. I don't know what is the meaning of this, but maybe personally I feel that in that case, what is going to happen? Probably we are entering into an era where shift of power will not take years. It will not take centuries. It will be happening in decades. So for example, if in the next decade there is a very big shift of power to India, so it is also possible that another second or third decade there may be a shift of power to African countries. So probably their shift of power also will be not very far off. Right? It's not a bad news. Don't think that if there is a big shift of power to India, so China will go down. Not necessarily. Because China will be already rich. So if, for example, if power has shifted to China, do you think that US has become poor or European countries have become poor? No. Or Japan has become poor? No. They are benefiting from the growth of China because they have invested money. So what is going to happen in future, which seems to be very likely, that in next 10 to 20 years, there will be a major shift of power in favor of India, and which will continue for another 1 or 2 decades. So by 50s, this century 50s, the growth of India will taper down. Taper down means it will probably start stagnating. Not decline, but stagnating. In which case, India will become a very big investor in the next shift of power, and most probably that shift of power will be to African countries. And India should be a very big investor. China has already started doing that. China is already starting buying a lot of lands in Africa. Even Indian companies are doing it, but not to that big. Not in such a big way. Not in that big way. China at a government level have bought thousands and thousands of acres of land in many of the countries. They are already started doing it for the future. Right? So India will also start. When you have the deep pockets, you can do it. India still doesn't have that deep pocket. Okay, so this is clear. Now, what is the impact? I told you in the world economy, it has been positive up till now. The world economy has benefited from the China's growth. And in fact, we need not doubt it. It is definitely a bigger shift than what happened with Germany and Japan. But only thing is, there is only one thing which I want to tell you. Germany and Japan were two smaller countries. They got the shift of power. Their per capita income rose. Do you know the per capita income of Germany? What is the per capita income of Germany? In dollar terms? What is per capita income? It's approximately $33,000. $33,000. Germany. Singapore, it is $38,000. And per annum. And China is approximately $8,000 at present. So now the point is, can China also achieve that 30,000 plus kind of thing? Do you think so? Can China achieve that kind of per capita income? $30,000? I also doubt. The reason is, China is very big country. Because of very, very large population. Probably it will not be able to achieve. So, it is how you gauge this shift of power. If you gauge this shift of power from per capita income, then definitely China's rise is not that much. What happened with Germany or what happened with Japan, right? Then we wouldn't say. But if you look at the size of the economy, size of the GDP, the overall GDP, definitely it is definitely bigger than what happened with Germany or what happened with Japan. Such a big country getting this kind of power as a whole is definitely quite large. But probably not from the per capita income. No. Okay. Can somebody would like to comment on this, that their GDP per capita income is 8,000, something like 8,000? What does it mean? Are they not that rich like Japan or Germany?
Due to population.
No, that's okay. But do you really think that this per capita income reflect that they are still not that rich? Can somebody tell me on this? Don't forget that with this $8,000 per capita income, they are using goods and services which are produced so cheaply in China itself. So their living standard would be actually better than Germany and Japan. Don't forget, they don't need to import so many things from around the world. They produce themselves at much cheaper prices, right? So this $8,000 in real term is not bad, it's very good. No wonder China is the world's biggest the top country in terms of generating revenue for tourism. Now, what does it mean? How does tourism revenue reflect China's richness? Can somebody comment on this? I'll repeat this. China is the top country in the world which contributes to the world tourism revenue, which is $1 trillion per annum. The revenue from the world tourism is $1 trillion. And the country which contributes maximum to this amount is China. What does it mean? Does it indicate something about China? People spend more on tourism when they have disposable income. They have spare money to spend. Right? If China is the biggest contributor to the world tourism revenue, it means with the $8,000 per capita income, they are able to get the same goods and services at much cheaper price and still have money to spend on tourism, going abroad, visiting places. Isn't it? Now you understand what I'm saying? So China don't go by per capita income. Personally, I feel China's average person living standard is probably better than what Germany or Japan you can think of. They have actually become quite rich. Okay? Yeah.
बात पढ़ रहा था तो उसमें से सर मतलब चाइना का एक गांव है और आदमी सर वहाँ 80 लाख रुपए कमाता है
80 लाख रुपया देखो see let's not go into the numbers because you know every country have their own economics. As I told you that when we compare per capita income, like for example I told you Singapore, which is in neighborhood, their per capita income is $38,000, right? Germany is $33,000. Japan would be similar. Now, if you do that number game, then you can do a lot of comparison. Don't go into that. Don't go into that. There is no point. Like within India also, you take smaller cities, Jaipur, Lucknow, Ludhiana. Somebody earning 30,000 rupees per month probably is better off than somebody earning 70,000 rupees in Delhi. Don't you think so?
Yes.
Right? So don't go into that number. But look at the overall picture. Look at the overall picture. So if you look at the overall picture, then you will realize that disposable income, expenditure on non-essential activities like tourism, it is not an essential activity. Right? Tourism is not an essential activity. If Chinese are spending more on tourism, it means they have disposable income, very high, and that too internationally. I am not talking about the tourism, domestic tourism, no. I am talking about the cross-border tourism, right? Okay. In terms of number also, the cross-border tourism number is 1 billion, and the revenue is 1 trillion. Cross-border number also, the biggest contributor is China. Somebody can say because of population. It's okay. But India also has a population. India is not contributing that much to the cross-border tourism. Okay. So this point is clear. So the shift of power is quite high.
Dude, help us, Jagannath. Good morning.
Now comes one very interesting part, which I really want to discuss with you, and probably I'll spend little more time and little deeper thoughts on this. That is about the Chinese culture, because that is most controversial part of China when we talk of culture. No, China's culture, their government policies, their method of governance, I will discuss from my point of view as an expert. Again, we should not take it from an Indian point of view or from US point of view. Let us try to be very unbiased and try to understand it from a perspective of a person who geopolitically, you are quite aware now. You already have gone through several lectures. So you understand the meaning of this geopolitics. Okay? So let us try to understand what China does, how it does, whether it is in the right direction or wrong direction, whether we should be able to judge what is right and what is wrong. That is very important. Okay, and there must be something in China and Chinese culture and Chinese government policy and the way of governance. That's why it is rising. There must be some good thing. It's not that the rise is happening without any good part of it. And then I will also discuss in that context what are the future possibilities in the Chinese society, looking from that point of view. So let us try to understand that. Okay. Present success of China is not the part of Chinese culture. No. No, that is a very, very, very harsh statement. A country giving an output without taking reports of its culture, what does it mean? Suppose somebody says that Modi government has come and India is progressing, not because of its culture, because of something else. So isn't it a very hard statement? How is it possible that there is a reflection of something not causing because of culture? Actually, it is true in case of China for the simple reason. What is the simple reason? China is ruled by its government, not by the culture. Like for example, India being a democracy, UP is governed by its UP culture. Bihar is governed by Bihar culture. Maharashtra is governed by Maharashtrian culture. Gujarat is governed by Gujarati culture. Right? It is true in India. But it is not true in China because it's a dictatorship. So, when there is no voting right, when there is no right to elect the government, obviously the basic culture of China is not there. No. Now that's a major difference between India and China. And I really will be discussing whether it is good or bad. We'll be talking about it. So what I'm trying to tell you, whatever is China is today is not because of its culture. It's because of the government policies. Okay? So is it okay? So slowly we'll move forward, then you will understand what is the meaning. So 1979 was their turning point. Like for example, it is said that India's turning point was which year? China's turning point? 1991. 1991 was the point when we have seen our bottom. Similarly, China took a very major decision of reforms in 1979. We were 12 years late. The gap between 1979 and 1991 is 12 years. So definitely we are 12 years behind. So if Modi succeeds, probably we are catching up with China. If in next 10 years we can definitely reach that level, probably. So we are not far behind from that angle, right? Okay. Is that clear? 1979. Why it is important for China? Because it is a turning point. Reforms started. Okay. Now there is another very interesting part of China. The Chinese government is now trying to replicate the model used by Singapore. And what is the model? The model of meritocracy. I'll just discuss. In fact, in today's paper, you will all the news is about meritocracy and Singapore. Whether it is Economic Times, whether it's HT, whether it's Times of India, you must be knowing why. Do you know why? Why today all the news concerns Singapore and meritocracy and all these things? Why it is there today? What is so special about today? Have you seen the newspapers today?
No, sir.
It is all about Singapore. Because the man behind the success of this small country, from nothing to what it is today, Mr. Lee's died today at the age of 90. Yesterday. Yeah. So news is okay. So if you look at any of the newspapers, you will find a lot of news about the rise of Singapore and the reasons behind it, about meritocracy, about many other things. Okay. Incidentally, in last 10 years, more than 10 to 15 years, China is embracing the Singapore model. Okay. So let me tell you. Let us be very clear. Chinese government policies comes from two things. Earlier it used to come from the Confucius teachings. What is the meaning of Confucius? Anybody will know what is the meaning of Confucius philosophy? What is Confucian philosophy? What is the meaning of that? Chinese, actually, the ancient culture of China is Confucian. Okay. So that, although it is not totally reflected into the success, but there was certain part of it. What is Confucian culture? You have seen this movie, Chandni Chowk to China?
Yes.
Right? That is one movie which tells you about the ancient culture of China, and that is Confucianism. What was shown in that movie? Do you remember? Martial art, okay. What else? जो हेड से ओके आलू वाला हमारे एक कहावत है ना करत करत अभ्यास के जड़वती होत सुजान रसे आवे जाते सिलसिले with time long time if you do something for a long time keeping long perspective you can get miraculous results. That is the meaning of Confucian. If you have seen this movie, Chandni Chowk to China, there is something which has been shown, if you remember. This person teaches martial art to Akshay Kumar. And using that martial art, he could make things fly. You remember? In the movie, the teachings which was, the training which was given to Akshay Kumar with lot of exercises, this and that. Although it's not possible actually, but it is believed in Chinese culture that with lot of practice, lot of focus, mind focus, you can actually in Kung Fu and this martial art, you need not even hit the person. Just by thought you can throw that person away, by thought. Right? I really don't know how much it is true. But that is the meaning of Confucianism. Confucianism says that you can get unheard results or miraculous results if you plan it long. If you have a short-term thinking, अगर आप सोचोगे, if you will think that you will do 2-year MBA and you will get a salary of 1 lakh rupees, it will never happen. Obviously, it will never happen. But if you think that in next 10 to 15 years, I have to reach a level of 5 lakh rupees per month, that is possible. Long term. And you start working for that 5 lakh rupees today itself. Suppose that is the meaning of Confucianism. That is the reason you must be knowing Hofstede cultural dimensions. Have you heard about it? Hofstede's cultural dimensions, world cultures, Hofstede model of cultures. There are 5 dimensions. What are the 5 dimensions? One is uncertainty avoidance. Second is power distance. 5 cultures, 5 dimensions. Third is masculinism. Fourth is individualism. And fifth is LTO. What is LTO? You have read it already. What is LTO? LTO is long-term orientation. Which are the societies which display long-term orientation? Pakistan at one time had score 0 in LTO. And China score was 115. On a scale of 0 to 100. The score of China was 115 in LTO. Look at the 0 score of Pakistan and 115 score of China. That is Confucianism.
इंडिया क्या है?
India is about somewhere around 60 to 70. The score of, if you look at, you go to Google, you check the latest score on LTO. You'll find score of India. Should be something around 60 to 70. And Pakistan maybe 15, 20. At some time it was 0. What is the meaning of this? That's a cultural difference on long-term orientation, right? So what Chinese did, since the biggest government policy of China was to spend money on results 20 years, 30 years down the line. 20 years, 30 years down the line. What kind of projects were there? Bring the sea inside. What is the meaning of this? For example, in India, which is the nearest seaport from Delhi? Which is the nearest seaport from Delhi? Probably Kandla. Kandla. Right or wrong? Kandla. Must be Kandla. Now, if Indian government would have been Chinese government, now Delhi is a very big capital of India. What they would have done, they would have done some studies whether Kandla port can be brought till Delhi. So can sea be brought down to Delhi? Are there physical conditions like that there are 2-3 hills in between? If you bombard those 2 hills, water will come down till Delhi. In that case, all the ships will come directly to Delhi. Those kind of things were done by Chinese government 30-40 years back. They have a river called Guangxi, 2000 kilometers long river, like our Ganga river. It is the counterpart of Ganga. They spent money and created waterways in that Guangxi river, so that apart from that movement of seashore, I'm not talking about that, so that when ship comes to the meeting point of Guangxi with sea, it enters into Guangxi and go 2000 kilometers inland, ship can go. So they have created that infrastructure in that Guangxi region. They have already spent money. It would not be of no use 30 years back, but today it is of big use. And not only that, when Ganga comes from Himalayas, it falls, it goes, again falls at many points, right? Maybe 2-3 points it will fall somewhere, or maybe not, but Guangxi was falling somewhere. So they have put lifts for ships. So when the ship comes there, see, even if it is falling, ship cannot be thrown. So lift will take it slowly down. And when the ship is coming like this, it will lift and put it back. The whole of Guangxi, wherever there is a fall, there is a lift. Imagine what kind of money they must have spent 30-40 years back, or maybe 25 years back. The Rome was not built in a day. Rome was not built in a day. It could only happen through long-term orientation or the government policies. In India, if you do, what will happen? Farmers will say, you are snatching our land because you are coming out with a land acquisition bill. To hell with the country. We are not bothered about the country. We are bothered about our land. Right? If they say bullet trains, link all the cities of India with bullet train, the people will say, how many cities can actually afford bullet train? Why are you spending money? If the Modi government says that we are spending money for the next 15 years, 20 years, will anybody accept it? Our culture will not accept it. We will not make investment for next 15-20 years, no. Probably we will make investment for next 10 years, 5 years. Those kind of projects. Did we make investment in linking our rivers? No. Why? Do you know why? And the person who said about linking the rivers was thrown out of the office. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, because a lot of money was to be spent. The benefit would have come 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line. But people were not ready because we don't have a long-term thinking. Probably we are better than Pakistan, which is zero on that. Okay? So now you understood the Chinese government thinking is influenced by Confucius thinking of spending and doing projects for the benefit 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the line. And that is the reason they have bought so much of big stretches of land in Africa. Do you think that these lands which have been bought by Chinese government is going to give any benefit now to China? No, no benefit. India will never be able to do. Parliament will walk out. Why you are spending money in Africa? But China has bought it and no benefit today. Do you know why they are doing it? Because as per their calculation, 20 or 30 years down the line, there will be no land in China to feed everybody. And consumption will go up. So they have to buy the land today at cheaper price so that they can produce food for Chinese people 30 years down the line. Do you think that it is possible in India? Not at all. It's not possible. We cannot, our culture do not allow. Our culture cannot think 30 years, 40 years down the line. Now you understood? Again, I am not talking from the point of view of a Indian person. That's why I told you that we are not comparing India and China. We are not comparing. Okay, clear? Okay. Now, what is meritocracy? What is meritocracy? One part is Confucius. Let me tell you, it is not that the whole policies are based on Confucianism. And it is also not true that Confucianism is the core culture of China. No. It is an ancient culture. May not be of today's China, but ancient. Right? So, don't think that way that it is the culture. I will tell you why it is so. Why the culture should not have an impact on the current government. That also I will discuss probably after the break. Okay. So now coming to the what is the meaning of meritocracy? Now, have you ever heard about what is meritocracy? You have heard about democracy. You have read about bureaucracy. Have you ever heard about meritocracy? What is the meaning? First time. Let me tell you. In today's world, the biggest buzzword is meritocracy. And in today's paper, if you read any newspaper you read today, the first line will have this word, meritocracy, when it is discussing about this person Lee. Because he attributes all the success of Singapore on this meritocracy. Now, what is the meaning of this meritocracy? First, tell me what is democracy. What is the meaning of democracy? एक ग्रुप में 5 अंधे हैं, और एक आंख वाला है. जब वो सिलेक्शन करेंगे लीडर का, क्या वो अंधे का करेंगे या आंख वाले करेंगे? बताओ, सोच के बताओ. 5 अंधे 90% अंधे को चुनेंगे. एक अंधे ही अंधे को समझता है. वो ओवर द टाइम उसको गुस्सा आता होगा, ये जो इसका अंधा नहीं है ना, ये बहुत बेकार आदमी है, इसको पता नहीं कि अंधे लोग कैसे होते हैं. ठीक है. डेमोक्रेसी का मतलब ये है कि हम सारे गधे हैं तो हम गधे ही चुनेंगे. कोई घोड़े को कोई नहीं चुनेगा. डेमोक्रेसी का मतलब क्या होता है? डेमोक्रेसी मीन्स इट इज सेड योर गवर्नमेंट इज एज गुड एज यू आर. It is not better. जब आपकी गवर्नमेंट जो आप चूज करते हो जो बेटर नहीं है, तो आप ग्रोथ कैसे एक्सपेक्ट कर सकते हैं? वेरी सिंपल लॉजिक. डेमोक्रेसी सेज you choose your leader and your government is as smart as you, so where is the growth? No growth. It cannot, growth is not possible logically. Do you think that is possible? And if you by chance, if you choose a smart government, they will tell you to be disciplined, will you accept? They will tell you do this thing, don't do this thing. You will not like it. How many people of you like we professors when we tell come in the class at the right time, listen to us? We become unpopular. So democracy means no growth, zero. Actually, obviously, जब 5 अंधे एक अंधे को चुनेंगे, वो अंधा भी उनकी जैसा ही है. उनको दिल की सेटिस्फैक्शन तो हो गई, पर ग्रुप का कोई भला नहीं हो रहा है उससे. वो भी तो अंधा है. वो क्या आपको रास्ता दिखाएगा? और जो अंधा नहीं है उसकी आप सुनने को तैयार नहीं हो, वो तो ऑड मैन आउट है. सो हाउ, व्हाट इज द लॉजिक इन डेमोक्रेसी? नो लॉजिक. आई एम नॉट सेइंग दिस. दिस इज द बज़वर्ड टुडे. In today's political scenario, this is the biggest debate going on. Whether democracy is good for the people? No, probably not. Because there cannot be a growth. Democracy is working in certain countries where people are already developed. They are already mature. अंधे है ही नहीं. अंधा है ही नहीं ग्रुप में. सब आंख वाले हैं, सबके 2 हाथ हैं, सबके सब कुछ है. ग्रुप में सब कुछ है. उसमें से किसी को आपने मेरिट के बेस पे, अगेन मेरिट वर्ड यूज कर रहे हो. देखो, अगेन आप कह रहे हो कि जब सारे एक से हैं तो बाई मेरिट ही चूज करोगे, राइट? दिस गिव्स बर्थ टू मेरिटोक्रेसी. व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ मेरिटोक्रेसी? चूज somebody by rules, not by emotions. Choose by mind, not by heart. डेमोक्रेसी में जो चूज करते हैं हम बाय हार्ट करते हैं. somebody says वहाँ करा देता है तो चलो जी इसको वोट दे दिया. बाय हार्ट, वी आर नॉट अप्लाइंग आवर माइंड. तो अंधे फिर अंधे को चूज करेंगे. तो डेमोक्रेसी कैन नॉट गिव ग्रोथ. नो. Democracy is good in certain countries which have already reached a very high level. Not suitable for a country like India. जब इंडिया का इंडिपेंडेंस हुआ था, हम तो बच्चे थे, छोटे बच्चे थे. आपने उनको वयस्क मान लिया, 18 साल से ऊपर मान लिया पहले से ही. आपने कहा कि गैम्बलिंग करो, आपने कहा बॉलीवुड की हर तरह की मूवी बनाओ, आपने पहले ही बोल दिया. ग्रोथ कैसे होगी? हो सकती है? नहीं हो सकती.